Here we go, back again with another episode of the Around the Show Sports Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Kyle Showalter, and I am joined tonight by my good friends Brandon Mills on the left, Christian Hausfeld on the right. Fellas, how we doing this evening?
Doing great. How are you doing, buddy?
Thanks for asking, man. I'm doing great. Couldn't be more thrilled to be here, kicking it with my homies, talking some ball.
Back again.
Chicken and kicking.
Obviously, coming off of that AL preview episode, we're moving over to the NL now. And the way that we're going to do this, for those of you that didn't watch the last episode or need a refresher, is we're going to go one by one, pick the teams from 5th place, 4th place, 3rd place, 2nd place to 1st place, and then we'll go ahead and have some discussions afterwards. So we're each going to pick the way that we see the standings shaking out, and then we're going to conversate about it after that. So I'm going to go ahead and start, and we're going to focus on the NL East first. And I said a lot in the last episode. It's not even worth talking about the last place team. That's the case in the NL East with the Washington Nationals. They lost 97 games last year. They traded everyone away. Max Scherzer and Trey Turner are no longer there. The only thing worth turning on the Nationals games for is to watch Juan Soto hit, who's going to be the best hitter of this generation. Other than that, save your time, save your money. Don't watch the Nats. They're not worth it. 4th place, I have the Miami Marlins, who had a really good offseason, adding Jorge Soler, World Series MVP, Jacob Stallings, an all-star last year for the Pirates at the catcher position, and Avisail Garcia, who always seems to have a really good offensive season. He put up 3 F4 last year as well. And I think the team's standout trait is their young pitching. And when I talk about a strong young rotation, I think the Marlins are the poster child for that. The trio of Sandy Alcantara, Pablo Lopez, and Trevor Rogers pitched to a 3-flat ERA and 4.41 and a third innings last year. That's pretty good. That'll certainly play. And then you also figure in that they have Max Meyer, Sixto Sanchez, and Edward Cabrera waiting in the wings. All of those guys are top 50 prospects, or they were top 50 prospects before they graduated out of prospect status. I think the other teams above them just straight up have more talent. You know, I like the Marlins. I'm going to watch a lot of games this year, but I don't see them being as successful as the teams in front of them. And 3rd, I think it's going to be the Philadelphia Phillies. And I think there's a lot to love about this team. The lineup's really strong. You add a guy like Nick Castellanos and Kyle Schwarber to a lineup that already has Bryce Harper in it and JT Realmuto. You got a lot of good things going on there. Zach Wheeler is going to compete for the Cy Young every year, just like he has been for the last couple. And then you got guys like Ranger Suarez and Aaron Nola that are really strong last year. Ranger Suarez pitched 80 innings in a relief role last year and 60 innings as a starter. He had a below 2 ERA in both of those roles, so he's a very strong player. And I think depth is what knocks them down a peg from the 2 teams above them. That's going to be the Mets in 2nd place. And I think if I was picking this 2 weeks ago, the Mets would have been finishing in 1st. This was before, but they lost Jacob deGrom, and now Max Scherzer is dealing with some hamstring issues. But I do still love the offseason. You know, bringing in Max Scherzer is awesome. He has had a little bit of issues with falling off late in the year last year, but he was relatively strong in the playoffs for the Dodgers last year before they were eliminated by the Braves. Had to throw that in there for you, Brandon.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, they traded for Chris Bassett so that this rotation for them, man, Jacob deGrom, Carlos Carrasco, Max Scherzer, Chris Bassett, they're looking like the Monstars out there. This is a very, very strong rotation. And then they signed Starling Marte, Eduardo Escobar, and Mark Canha to solidify the lineup. But unfortunately, the Mets are going to Met. deGrom and Scherzer are already hurt. It is what it is. I still think they have enough to finish in 2nd place. But for me, the Braves are going to win this division. The reigning World Series champions. A lot of people forget they only won 88 games last year, but their season was really, really odd. And I think they're here in 1st place just because there's less questions about them. They replaced Freddie Freeman with Matt Olson and his 146 weighted runs created plus in 2021. That's pretty good. Their lineup is one of the few that can bang 1 to 9. There's no easy outs in this lineup. The rotation is deep. The bullpen we just watched dominate October added Kenley Jansen. This team got stronger winning their World Series. And did I mention they have Ronald Acuna Jr. coming back this year that they just won the World Series without? That's a guy that I think we're going to have a lot of conversations about this year as potentially being one of those guys pushing Trout for the best player in baseball, and he's going to do it on the division champion Atlanta Braves.
Right on, man. I agree with a lot of your points there. We do have some mix-up in our standings, but record-wise, I don't think it's going to, be too far off. It could go anyway. In last place, I have the Marlins. And that's just because we're talking about the 2022 season. Look for the Marlins to be a very good team coming in the future. I like how you touched on their pitching staff. You said it yourself, young pitching staff. When they get a little more maturity and, that team gets their feet a little bit more wet, the Marlins are going to be scary. But for now, I still have them finishing in last. Behind the Nats, it's going to be neck and neck there. Race to see who's the shittiest team. Not much to say about the Nationals, like you said. Juan Soto's probably one of the most fun guys to watch play baseball on one of the most boring teams to watch play baseball. But the last time I thought the Nats didn't have a shot at anything, they won the damn World Series. Coming in third, like you said, Mets gonna Met. Drawing a blank on homie's name. DeGrom. Christian, you were telling me earlier, it's looking like at least July is when we're going to see the guy, maybe even later. With him, maybe even look to see him sit the whole season. Sorry if there's any Mets fans listening. Might not even see the guy pitch. Max Scherzer, always going to be a good addition. But how long is he going to last? We saw him have those endurance issues with the Dodgers last year. If and when they come down to the stretch, are they going to be able to rely on him heavy like the Dodgers tried to last season and didn't work out too well? Coming in second, I do think the Phillies are going to edge out the Mets solely because of that offensive lineup you touched on. Picking up Castellanos, I don't know how to say the guy's name.
Castellanos.
All right, and Schwarber. Those guys are sick, and I'm one of the biggest Bryce Harper backers, besides maybe you, that there is in the league. You laughing at me, or you? No. Biggest Bryce Harper backer. I love the guy. I love the way he plays the game. And he's sharp. Phillies going to come in second there, but no question here, the Braves, how the hell do you get better when you let go of Freeman? How does the team, become better? I'll tell you how you get Matt Olson, who's a younger version of Freeman, who is going to potentially lead the league in home runs this year. And all that firepower, like you said, 1 through 9, you don't have an easy out on that team. It's going to be tough to beat them. Think they take the Central by a landslide this season.
I guess my list is going to be the most different from you guys. I agree.
Really?
Yeah. So at the bottom, I agree with you guys. I got the Marlins and Nationals. Who cares who finishes where? The only thing I'd say is the Marlins have some at least interesting pieces. We talked about the young pitching. I just don't think it's enough to get them out of the 70s. So it's whatever. And poor Juan Soto, get this guy a team or get him the hell out of there, please. Because he's just too damn exciting not to care about his team. In third place, I have the Mets. So I have the Mets all the way down to number 3. It's a tough way to start the year with DeGrom on the IL. Like Brandon said, projection is June at the best case scenario, possibly July. We all know he's probably planning on opting out. Does he just sit the whole season? That'd be a heavy blow to that team. I feel like Scherzer, he's been tried and true year after year, but Father Time always wins. Is this year where it finally starts to take a hold of him? I think that's something that you can start asking. So if you don't have a Scherzer that is a Scherzer and you have no DeGrom, does this staff look as scary? They still have Bassett, who's he's a dog, but I don't think it's as threatening if those two aren't in the lineup. Offensively, they aren't as good as the Braves or the Phillies. So yeah, I feel like it's a lot of it's predicated on that starting pitching, and I feel like there's a lot of question marks. Next, I got the Braves. So I have the Braves coming in second. They're the 2021 champs. No one saw it coming, and if you did, you're a liar because nobody saw it coming. I think they were just above 500 heading into the deadline. So it just proves like there's nobody in the world saw this team even competing for a playoff spot. They lost Freddie Freeman, but they replaced him with Matt Olson. I think that is a good replacement, but I think it's a net negative. They definitely, I feel like Freddie Freeman is better than Matt Olson, so there's a loss there. But they're getting Acuna back. Acuna, it sucked to see him get injured because he's one of the most fascinating and exciting players to watch in baseball. I'd like to talk about the rotation. The rotation is going to be really good. They have Max Fried, who's a bona fide number one. But they also have a guy with the name Ian Anderson. And through 60 innings and 2/3, he had a whopping ERA plus of 138. That cannot be underlined enough. That's really good. And maybe they get Soroka back, and he can be a key contributor for them midway through the year. Their offense is going to be really good, but I just feel like it's not going to be as good as it was last year towards the end of the season with losing Freddie Freeman. I feel like that's a bigger blow than people are giving it credit for. The top, I got Phillies. They really committed to spending this offseason, and then I applaud it because we have so many other teams that are not, with the Guardians, which we talked about last episode, and even in the same division, the Nationals. So I really applaud them for going out and spending money, and it's with two former Cubs, which I love. Castellanos, he's one of the most exciting players to watch hit. It's a master at his craft. Schwarber, he's found his stick. I'm happy for the dude. I'll always be a Kyle Schwarber fan. And they got Bryce Harper. And JT Real Muto, right? Real Muto? Yeah. He had a down year last year. So their offense, they added two guys who's going to help them offensively. And Real Muto is going to bounce back. I'm very, very positive he's going to bounce back and be the player that we know. And he's going to be that number one catcher in the league. They also have Hoskins. Hoskins is a dog at the plate too. Offensively, I just feel like they have too much to get something out of one of their players every night. If they all start hitting together, watch out for this team. I feel like they can really do some damage. And then their rotation is really good too. They have at the top, they have Nola, which he's a number one starter. He's always competing for that Cy Young. And they have Zach Wheeler. So they have a bona fide number 1 and 2, and their rotation got better over the offseason too. They added Knebel, Familia, and Hand. Those are all really good pieces. So I feel like they upgraded their offense. They upgraded their bullpen. I feel like they're ready to make some noise in this division.
All right, I think you guys convinced me on the Phillies leaping the Mets. I think looking at their projected lineup this year, I'm just gonna go ahead and read you their first 6 batters. You got Kyle Schwarber, JT Realmuto, Bryce Harper, Nick Castellanos, Rhys Hoskins, Gene Segura, and I'll go and throw one more in there, Didi Gregorius.
Yep.
This is one of the stronger top 2/3 of the lineup that I've seen going through these pages. And then, you factor in how good Nola is. I think Nola's the 2 on that team to Wheeler. I think Wheeler is an absolute superstar. He's finally starting to get the strikeout stuff to go his way that wasn't happening in New York, and it's paid dividends for him, obviously. And then Ranger Suarez, I want to go ahead and pull those numbers up that I referenced in terms of the differences between his relief appearances and his starter appearances. So while I pull that up, I will just say this kid has arrived for them. Man, Ranger Suarez last year was very, very good. He's been around the system for a little bit at 26 years old. But for this team, he's exactly what they needed last year. And I'm getting those numbers pulled up right now. So as a starter, he pitched 65 and 2/3 innings to a 1.51 ERA. As a reliever, he pitched 40 and a third innings, 1.12 ERA. So if that's your 3 or your 4 pitcher, hell no. Like, how are we doing?
Yeah.
It's tough to go against a team like that, especially with the question marks that the Mets have with their rotation. And the Phillies obviously just have a stronger lineup than the Mets. I don't think it's close. So I think with the help of DeGrom and Scherzer kind of being a question mark, and that's a legitimate question with what we've seen from Scherzer coming in the back half of the seasons these last couple of years, and then DeGrom's injury history, it's kind of is wishful thinking to project them to have those guys all season, especially with DeGrom already hurt and slated to miss a lot of time. So I think I could see the Phillies finishing above them, but I don't think it puts them in a position to go above the Braves. I think the Braves are better in all 3 phases on the field. I think their lineup's better. I think their rotation's better. Very barely. I think the Braves is just deeper, 1 to 5 versus the top heaviness of Philly. And I think their bullpen is far and away better. I think the Braves probably have a top 3 bullpen in baseball. And that was the story of the postseason. They did lose Mark Melancon to the Diamondbacks, but I think, those guys that stepped up last year, I think they're going to continue to do that. And I just can't see the Phillies getting above them as much as I want to, man, because I love Bryce Harper. You touched on it. I am for years and years, I was the guy banging the Bryce Harper drum, and everybody's calling him overrated. I would get angry, red in the face talking about it, because I just love the guy. I love his game. He's so talented. He does things the right way, even though for some reason he has the reputation that he doesn't, because a couple things he did when he was a rookie. It's a fun team, and it's a lot of guys that I love. Schwarber and Castellanos are both absolute goons, but I just don't see them jumping the Braves, even though I think you guys have convinced me that they're going to finish above the Mets just because of the injury stuff.
Yeah, Mets going to Met in any way possible, whether it's having a great team that can't win games, having a team that can't stay healthy, doing dumb stuff in the front office. The Mets are going to find a way to disappoint their loyal fans.
Yeah, and that's
just what it is.
This season's the perfect example of that.
100%.
They had a great offseason.
100%.
You signed Max Scherzer. You trade for Chris Bassett, who's a legit stud, 3.3 ERA last year.
Yep.
And then you signed Starling Marte, who, granted, a little bit old, but he is going to be fighting for the league lead in stolen bases this year like he is every year. You add Mark Canha, who is a very versatile player for Oakland, who plays a lot of different positions, wears a lot of different hats. And then they also added Eduardo Escobar, switch-hitting middle infielder, can also play third base, can play a little bit of outfield if you need him to. Had a down year last year with Milwaukee, but I certainly think he has the capability to bounce back. But, of course, they do everything right, and immediately, before anything even has a chance to go right for them during the season, everything goes wrong for them. That's going to Met.
It feels like kind of like the Lakers to me, where the Mets are signing these. Scherzer has been a dominant starting pitcher for the last 10 years, and I just feel like Father Time's kind of catching up to him. And DeGrom, I mean, it just is tough luck. I just don't know how scary or lethal that starting pitching is going to be without those two guys at the head of the ship. I feel like the Phillies and Braves, it's going to be really close. I feel like it's going to come down to within 5 games for that first place spot. I feel like it's a lot closer than a lot of people giving credit for. I feel like just how top heavy that lineup is for the Phillies is so much better offensively than the Braves are. And I feel like that's the difference maker, where the pitching, okay, you might give the upper hand to the Braves, but it's not by much. The bullpen you can give to the Braves, but the Phillies can compete. I just feel like the huge difference maker where it's just like above and beyond is the Phillies offense. And so I feel like that's going to be the difference maker.
I get it. I get that. Like the top heaviness of the Phillies lineup is attractive. But like I said, when I was going through the division preview, like this 1-9, these guys can bang. Their 9-hitter is Travis d'Arnaud, who's projected to slash 247, 311, 414 with 14 homers and 393 plate appearances. If you're getting that out of your 9-hole guy, Dansby Swanson, a guy above him, projected to have a 4.33 slugging. And the on-base numbers don't look great in this bottom part of the lineup, but the slugging from 1 to 9, man. Adam Duvall is their 7-hitter. He's projected 475. He had some big home runs for them last year down the stretch. He was one of those guys they traded for along with Jorge Soler and Jock Peterson at the deadline last year. And I think you are right. It is going to be closer. You really do have me drinking the Phillies Kool-Aid right now. I'm feeling good about it.
Yeah, come over to the Phillies.
But, man, I just look at this lineup. Ozzie Albies, Matt Olson, Austin Riley, Marcelo Zuna, who hits baseballs and women, Adam Duvall, Dansby Swanson. Like, there's just so much good out of that. 1 to 9 in this lineup. It's just so strong. And granted, the bench doesn't blow you away or anything. But that lineup, Max Fried, Charlie Morton, Kyle Wright, Ian Anderson, Huascar Ynoa, who before he broke his hand last year by punching a wall or whatever it was, the weird injury for him, he was looking great. And then Tucker Davidson's a guy who hasn't really done much in the big leagues yet, but he was their 9th-ranked prospect last year. And then you talk about potentially getting Soroka back. I don't think that's going to happen this year with that Achilles injury. But if he comes back, I mean, this is a damn good ball club, man.
Yep.
They finished 6 games above the Phillies last year. Without Ronald Acuna and with going into the deadline around 500, I do think the Phillies got a lot better, but I think their ceiling, like you mentioned last episode with the Angels, is probably close to 90 wins. I think the Braves can win 100 this year if some things go right for them. If Acuna returns to the potential MVP candidate he was going to be last year, I just think firepower-wise, there's too much good with the Braves for them to possibly take that back seat. But hey, some stuff goes wrong. You really never know what can happen. That's why doing this whole exercise is silly, but it's fun. It's a good thing to do. So moving over to the NL Central, the team that I have finishing in 5th place is the Pittsburgh Pirates. Their business model is bad for the game of baseball. I'm done talking about them. For 4th place, I have the Cincinnati Reds. Again, their business model is bad for baseball, and I'm done talking about them. In 3rd place, I got the Chicago Cubs. I'm picking them to finish 3rd, but they're going to be the worst 3rd place team in the league this year. Rafael Ortega and Frank Schwindel broke out last year and really were their big stars offensively once they traded those guys away, but their underlying numbers are very concerning. Ortega outperformed his expected batting average by 39 points and his expected slugging by 109, and Schwindel's differentials were even more significant, so that gives me a lot of cause for concern for 2 of their bigger bats. And outside of Stroman, I just don't think there's a lot to get excited about in terms of the arms on the ball club. And I just think they're a clear step below the 2 teams above them, but I think they're a clear step above the other 2 teams in the division. Moving over to 2nd place, I got the St. Louis Cardinals, and this is one of my favorite teams to watch on a yearly basis because their organization just does things differently. Their MO is obvious. We're going to pitch, and we're going to play defense. We're going to get guys in the rotation that are going to get a lot of ground balls, and then we're just going to pick it better than everybody on the planet. And if you look at their roster construction, they got Goldschmidt at first, Tommy Edman at second base, Nolan Arenado at third, and Paul DeJong and Edmundo Sosa are competing for the shortstop position this year. What do all those guys have in common? They're superb defenders. Sosa being the minor anomaly there in terms of maybe he's not quite as good as Paul DeJong, but he's clearly a better hitter than him. We'll see which one of them ends up taking the position, but that's clearly what the Cardinals focus on. And assuming health for Jack Flaherty, this staff's going to show up, man, just like they did last year. Waino was incredible last year, and I think this team's got a lot of good juju going around it, bringing Albert Pujols back, having Waino and Yachty there for one more season, getting the band back together. The last time these guys played together, they won a World Series back in 2009. Who knows? Maybe they'll do that again this year. I just don't think that they have enough firepower to compete with the top team in the division. And for me, the top team in the division, the team that's going to finish in first, has to be the Milwaukee Brewers. And I think they should be considered one of the favorites to win the World Series this year. This is a very, very, very strong ball club. And I think only the Mets have a stronger rotation. And with the health of that rotation, I think it's fair to say that the Brewers are actually the team with that strong rotation. Corbin Burns, must-watch TV. You talk about a guy with electric stuff, incredible command, the complete package for a modern pitcher. In 2021, this guy put up a 2.43 ERA, a 36% strikeout rate as a starting pitcher, a 5% walk rate, and a 2.61 SIERA, which is kind of like ERA plus and FIP, but it factors in different batted ball types into the equation a little bit differently, so home runs are heavier weighted than singles and so on and so forth. Corbin Burns started the year last year with 77 strikeouts before he walked a single batter. This guy is dominant. He has complete control over everything he throws. He's nasty. And I mean, they got guys like Brandon Woodruff and Freddie Peralta who both posted sub 3.4s last year with 30+% K rates. And that's your 2 and your 3 that's going to play all day long. And I don't love the offense, but they scored the 6th most runs in the National League last year with a 101 WRC plus with a down year from Christian Yelich, that being his WRC plus there. If he bounces back, man, this team's going to be really, really good. And I really do feel like eventually Yelich is going to figure it out. He was too good for too long to not. So I really feel like the Brewers are the clear team to beat in this division.
Yeah, well, for the first time, we agree perfectly. I've got the Reds and the Pirates tied for dead last in the whole league. Like you said, baseball model is terrible. Hate the way they do business. Not trying to compete in the offseason. You're not going to compete in the regular season. I'll say it time and time again. Moving on. I have the Chicago Cubs coming in 3rd place, sadly, but I just don't think you guys have what it takes to compete at a high level in that division. I will give you this. You want to win a little bit more than the Reds and the Pirates do, and I respect that. But when it comes down to it, the roster you guys have is just not going to compete with those 2 top dogs. Coming in 2nd, like Kyle, I have the Cardinals. Defense is without question one of the top defenses in the league. I think it's 5 or 6 Gold Glovers on the team, maybe 4 or 5. I could be wrong, not sure. So that's not going to be the question. It's to me is their offense going to hold up down the stretch? I think they have an insane lineup. Like you said, Waino, Yachty, Pujols all back together for that farewell tour of great Hall of Fame players. Maybe that'll light a fire under, the rest of the team's ass to go out and get it done for them. But in my opinion, no one is topping these Brewers. They have the strongest pitching staff in the MLB, in my opinion. And like you said, Yelich, baseball players like that don't spend too much time on the lows. He's going to get his things figured out, and he's top player in the league. Look for the Brewers to make a push. Not a team I want to see in a 7-game series, but definitely a team I'm going to see if we want to win a World Series. That's that.
So we'll make it 3 for 3 because I agree with you guys too on the rankings.
Yeah,
that doesn't happen often around these parts. So at the bottom, I got obviously the Pirates. You might see more footballs thrown around at the ballpark than fans, or birds. You might see more birds next to just terrible. I feel bad for their fans. And the Reds aren't much better. They just traded away anyone of value besides their young rookie of the year last year. So I feel bad for Reds and Pirates fans. It's not good for the game, and it's free wins for the Cubs, I guess. Cubs I got finishing in 3rd place. We all know the pain that most Cub fans and anyone that supported the Cubs last year, what we had to go through getting rid of all of our stars and the core that we really became fond of and all of us fell in love with over the 2015 to 2021 ride. We got a World Series out of it, so can't be thankful enough. But I feel like it's a new era of Cubs baseball, and I'd like to gush over them a little bit. Now that the Band-Aid's been ripped off, there's really no expectations. We know what we are. We're garbage. But maybe it's a little bit of fun this year. We got Frank Schwindel. I don't think he's going to be very good, but he's fun. I mean, 30-something-year-old rookie. We got Patrick Wisdom. He fucking hits tanks, so he's fun. That guy's cool. But we also went out and got Stroman for no reason. I don't know why he's on the team, but he's cool. So, yeah, we also got Seiya Suzuki. I think he's going to be a fun player to watch this year. Keep an eye on him for your NL Rookie of the Year. I know we're not doing those predictions, but he's going to be a fun player to watch. And every time he hits a home run, I'll get to say, see ya. So that'll be fun. We also have players like Clint Frazier, who we're just kicking the tires on. He's going to provide a thump. He's had a really good spring, so keep an eye on him. Come the trade deadline, he'll probably get flipped. But, yeah, and then we have up-and-coming prospects like Brendan Davis. He's a top prospect in the league, and he's been really hot this offseason too, or this spring training too. So yeah, I think it's just a new era, and I think we're just gonna be a scrappy team. I'm not saying we're gonna compete for the division, but I feel like we're good enough to post high 70s, maybe mid 80s as our ceiling. Maybe compete for a wild card spot. Who knows? Maybe that's pushing it. But yeah, I feel like the expectations are so low that it's just going to be a fun year. One more thing I'll say is keep an eye on Wilson Contreras. I think there's a good chance he'll get traded within the next week. If not within the next week or two, I definitely see him getting moved come the trade deadline. Next up, I have the Cardinals. The Cardinals losing Flaherty is a pretty big blow for them. Depending on how fast he comes back, will be a pretty big blow to that rotation. They have a really good defense, and it's probably the best in the league. They really value that glove. So they're not going to make a whole lot of mistakes. They're going to pitch well. And then their bullpen probably is the best in the league. So if they get a lead, they're going to hold that down. But with Flaherty being out, I feel like that offers them an opportunity to bring up some of those prospects because they have really elite pitching prospects. So they can see what they have, and maybe one of them steals that 5th spot when Flaherty comes back. And then finally, we got the Brewers at the top of the division. They have undoubtedly the best rotation in baseball. Even if the Mets were healthy, I would still argue they have the best rotation in baseball. Woodruff and Burns, period. That's it. Woodruff being the Cy Young, and Burns came in 5th place in Cy Young voting. That says enough. Actually, flip-flop. They also have a really good all-star pitcher as their number 3 in Freddie Peralta. Freddie Peralta could be a number 2, maybe a number 1 on some pitching staffs. The Cubs could use him as their number 1. And then I came across this stat. Their whole pitching rotation didn't go below an ERA plus of 132 as a whole. That's nuts.
That's absurd.
That's absurd. I also like Aaron Ashby. He's going to be a pitcher for them, possibly pitching in their 5th spot. They might be implementing a 6-man rotation. He, in his little bit of flash, he posted, I think, a better than an ERA plus of 120 or 130. So he also could be an NL Rookie of the Year candidate. But bottom line, this rotation is scary. Their offense is fine. I don't think Christian Yelich is all that he was once when he won the MVP that year. But they don't really need to score that much if that pitching rotation only gives up 1 or 2 runs a game. Yeah, and then pair that with that bullpen with Hader. I mean, Hader's still Hader. It's scary that their rotation's not going to give up any runs, and then their bullpen is not going to give up any runs. So, good luck.
Being that we all had the same exact standing predictions for this, I don't think we need to spend too much time on it. But the one thing I do want to address, Brandon, you brought up the 7 Gold Glovers for the Cardinals. I went ahead and looked that up. So they won 5 Gold Gloves last year. That was Harrison Bader, Nolan Arenado, Tommy Edman, Paul Goldschmidt, and Tyler O'Neill. And then they also have Yadier Molina, who would be the 6th guy who's won a Gold Glove on that team. And then Paul DeJong is certainly capable of playing Gold Glove shortstop for them as well. So they have 7 Gold Glove caliber defenders on the field at any given time. It's just ridiculous what they do down there in St. Louis. But we got one division left, man, and that's going to be that NL West. So I have the Arizona Diamondbacks finishing in 5th place in the NL West. I don't think it's much of a conversation. They're going to lose a lot of games, but I do want to give them credit for giving their star player, Ketel Marte, a 5-year, $78 million contract this offseason. We've watched a lot of teams fire sell and just give guys away for half the prospect capital they should be getting. So I want to reach out and applaud the Arizona Diamondbacks, despite the fact they lost 110 games last year. Went out, paid their guy. Love that for them and love that for their fans. The Colorado Rockies are going to finish in 4th place. This is one of the few teams in sports that I genuinely dislike as an organization. I think the move I'm sorry, I'm getting pissed off because I think about how the fact that they just gave Nolan Arenado that big deal, trade him away, ship $50 million off with him, and then 12 months later, they give Chris Bryant $180 million. Not knocking Chris Bryant. I think he's a great player. But why would you pay, $50 million to get rid of Nolan Arenado just so you can pay Chris Bryant? I can't stand the organization, and I'm moving on because it's just going to piss me off. 3rd place, I have the San Diego Padres, and I think there's going to be a big shift organizationally for them this year. And I think Tatis, with that 8-week injury he's looking at, 8+ weeks for that fractured wrist that he suffered with a motorcycle accident in the Dominican Republic, what that does for them is it clears the way for Manny Machado to step up and be the leader of this team in the way that it always should have been. I think there's the old adage of teams take on the personality of their superstar. And I think, while Tatis is an incredible athlete, he's an incredible player, he is very aloof and very fun-loving and free. I think Manny Machado's kind of hard-nosed grinder style of baseball player is much more akin to what we see in good leaders in baseball. And I think him taking over for Tatis in that leadership role during his absence will pay dividends for this organization going forward. But with their best player slated to miss over 6 weeks this season, I just can't put them above the Dodgers or the Giants, who won 106 and 107 games last year. Thinking about that's just absolutely nuts. But I do think that the power is going to shift, and the Giants are going to be finishing in 2nd place this year in the NL West. And I think the question with them this year is going to be whether last year was lightning in a bottle or if this is the new norm for the Giants. And I think if you know anything about the Giants organization and what they preach, what GM Farhan Zahidi loves to do, the Giants are for real, man. They know how to develop. They know how to trade for guys. They know what to look for, and they've proven that year over year. This rotation is anchored by Logan Webb, who posted a 3.03 ERA and a 75 ERA minus, meaning he's 25% better than league average last season. And then he only gave up 1 earned run in 14 2/3 innings and 2 playoff starts against the Dodgers last year, the best lineup in all of baseball.
Yep.
Did I mention he's 24 years old? Kid's a bona fide superstar. He's going to be anchoring this lineup for a really long time. And yeah, the lineup's old, but if these bounce back guys continue to be who they are, they're going to be plenty good. But I just don't think it's going to be enough to do what they did last year, which is what they're going to want to do if they're going to overtake the Dodgers, because the Dodgers are going to win this division, man. There's just too much good juju going on. They're having a little bit of a rough spring, like you mentioned, off air, but I just don't think it really matters. The Dodgers, they lost Corey Seager, Max Scherzer, Kenley Jansen. They're still going to win 100 games. they might win more games than they did last year. I'd argue they might even be better than they were last year with having a full season of Trey Turner over there, freeing up more at-bats for Max Muncy with the DH role, being able to do some things. I do think losing A.J. Pollock, we talked about this off air, I think it's a much bigger blow than you guys seem to. I think you kind of were in the middle between us. This Dodgers lineup is absolutely ridiculous. Like I mentioned about the Braves, there's just no easy outs on this team. Every single guy is going to scrap for every ball and strike that you throw them. Every single double, triple homer they hit, they're going to earn. It's just everybody's a tough out. And yeah, the bullpen's a weakness, but I do like the move to acquire Craig Kimbrell to replace Kenley Jansen, who took off to the Braves. I don't love that Kimbrell's a true closer that can't pitch outside of the ninth inning. But, I still think he makes this team a lot better. And I think the main takeaway and the main question the main thing that we have to think about when we do this is most teams that we say XYZ needs to go right in order for them to compete. The Dodgers, we're thinking XYZ needs to go wrong for them to not compete. And I think that's the big differentiation between them and all of these other clubs is this club really doesn't have any question marks, at least when you compare it to what the other clubs are facing. They're just too talented and they're just too deep. I don't think this one's going to be as close as it was last year. I think the Dodgers are going to run away with this one.
Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly on the whole division. Actually, D-backs are going to come in a very uncompetitive last place, not going to spend too much time on them at all. But you don't see them doing enough during the season and in the offseason to be that team that's going to compete at any facet in the league. Rockies kind of just bonehead decisions over this offseason. Adding Chris Bryant does not make you any better than you were last year. I don't think, the Rockies, I don't think they're going to compete at all, especially in this division. Then you got the Padres, who I think lack maturity. Surprisingly, all these years now, it's been, I think, 3 or 4 the Padres have kind of had their name back up there, but I still think they do lack that maturity when it comes down to playing in those big-time moments. They're going to be missing out on Tatis for, like you said, 6 weeks at least. And then you got to rely on the back of Manny Machado, and that could be good and that could be bad, depending on how things are going. If things are going bad, you tend to see Machado shut down, and we'll see what kind of leader he can be. Coming in second place, as do you. I also have the Giants. They kind of exceeded even, I think, their own expectations last year, so look for them to digress a little bit, but we do know who they are. They're a good team who's going to get a lot of wins. Could be a team who sees close to the 100-win mark, but I don't think it's going to be enough to take over what the Dodgers have going on over there. I think they're going to come back on top and win that division. Star power from 1 to 9. Like you said, that the bullpen is a weakness. I think when we get Dustin May back and healthy in his full form, you'll see things look a lot different. It'll look more comfortable. Bullpen is shaky, but I do think the Dodgers have the offense to go ahead and get that done.
So I think we all have it at the same again. I have the same exact rankings, just a little bit different reasoning. I feel really bad for Chris Bryant going to the Rockies. I think he's happy, but like you mentioned earlier, the Rockies management just kind of just not the best. And they just traded away at their face of the franchise who gave them everything and paid to do it, and they sent money along with it. But I actually have the Diamondbacks finishing lower than them. They're just not in a place to win, and I think you can just leave it at that. Padres, one word that I would sum it up for them is oof. The Tatis news of him fracturing his wrist or falling off a bike, not just once, but I guess multiple times, is not what you wanted to hear out of the guy that is supposed to be your face of your franchise and is earning the most money. But their starting rotation, Joe Musgrove threw the Padres' first no-hitter last year. He's going to be a workhorse for them. If they get anything close to what Yu Darvish was for them in the first half of the season, they might be pretty dangerous. And Blake Snell, if he can return to what he was previously, their rotation is starting to turn out to a lot better than I think people give it credit for. And the trade for Sean Manaea, they're going to have a really good rotation. So I feel like they're going to be fighting for that second spot. I think they'll finish just outside of it. I have San Fran finishing second. Like Brandon said, I feel like they surprised everyone. I don't think anyone saw them finishing the way they did. But they lost Gausman and Posey. I feel like losing Posey is a huge loss. He had a career year last year. And so you're not only just losing his value on the field, but his leadership too. Cobb is going to be an absolute beast this year. He posted a ERA plus of 119. And then Logan Webb. Logan Webb is who I meant to say is a beast, but Cobb is too. Logan Webb posted a 135 ERA plus, which is nuts. And then, like you mentioned, Kyle, he only let one earned run in 14 2/3 innings against the Dodgers in the playoffs. So he's going to be an absolute beast. But I just feel like it's just not enough to dethrone the Dodgers this offseason. Too much talent, top to bottom, lineup-wise. I still have a lot of questions rotation-wise with them. They have Buehler, they have Urias, but Kershaw's getting older, and they don't really have much besides Kershaw. May is going to be injured to start the season, so that's a concern for me. But their lineup is just too dynamic and too talented just to let that go to waste. And their bullpen is a little shaky for me outside of Buterol. Kimbrel, I have no faith in. I saw what he did to the White Sox in their season. But yeah, they're just too talented not to finish in first, but we'll see with their starting pitching and bullpen.
I'll say since we got it all similar, I think we'll move on pretty quickly over to our awards picks and our World Series predictions for the year. But I want to pose a quick question. If Tatis isn't hurt, do the Padres have a shot at winning this division over the Dodgers, or do you think their ceiling is second place? Because this is a question that I have a hard time answering because I'm a huge believer in what the Padres are, but I don't know. I'm curious to see what you guys think. I don't really have an answer in my head.
X, Y, and Z is going to have to go wrong for anybody to atop the Dodgers in this division this season.
That's probably the best way to sum it up. Do you have a different opinion?
I think it's actually not so much on Tatis is what their ceiling can be. I think it's their starting rotation. I feel like if they can all come together, yes, Tatis is a huge part of their lineup, but if they have their starting rotation all come together and they all pitch the way that everyone knows they can, I think they would have a shot, but it's just there's too much uncertainty.
If the Dodgers don't win the division, we're only going to be talking about what the Dodgers didn't do to win it, not what the other two teams that we have in contention here did do to win it. So that'll be the main focus. Do they have the talent? Hell yeah. They have World Series talent in San Diego. But I do think there is a ceiling when it comes to the NL West. And the Dodgers are going to have to do things wrong in order for anyone to take that spot from them.
Well, right on. Sounds like we'll wrap up our two preview shows, and we'll go ahead and call out our NL MVP, NL Cy Young, and the team we think is going to go to the World Series from the National League. And then we're going to go ahead and refer back to what teams we picked from the American League to go to the World Series. Go ahead and make our final call on who we think is going to take home the Fall Classic this year. I'll go ahead and start for the NL MVP. I have a guy who's going to be a mainstay on a lot of these lists for a lot of years, and I think this is going to be the year he wins his first one. He would have won his first one last year if he had better health. My guy's Ronald Acuna Jr. I think he's one of the three best players in baseball at any position, and the guys in front of him are guys who are established like Mike Trout. Shohei Ohtani's a guy in that conversation. A guy like Freddie Freeman could be up there as well. But I think Ronald Acuna Jr. is ready to take that step and win that first MVP, and it's most likely going to be first of many.
Who I think is the most valuable player might be a little overshadowed by how bad his team is. But Juan Soto, I think he's going to come out, and he's the most fun player to watch play. Smoothest swing since Cano. Dude can drop the hammer. So, I mean, I think he's going to be the MVP, but that could be overshadowed by how bad, the Nationals are.
I'll say Bryce Harper, I think, wins MVP again.
I like that.
That kind of goes with my belief that the Phillies are going to be pretty good this year. And if the Phillies are good, Harper's good. I think the team that has the MVP, it has to be a winning team. So that's why I wouldn't pick Juan Soto, but I understand why you would.
My counter would be Trout's won multiple when the team's finished below 500. But I get that philosophy and that line of thinking for a lot of guys.
Yeah.
For the NL Cy Young, I got Corbin Burns repeating. I just think he's too good. He throws too many innings. He doesn't walk anybody ever. His strikeout rates are astronomical. He is a mathematical anomaly with the way that he's able to strike guys out and avoid walking guys and give guys free passes. He's just so dominant, so good. I love turning on Brewers games to watch him pitch, and hopefully I'm doing that watching those games on the way to another Cy Young campaign for him this year.
Well, man, mine was Corbin Burns, and I think it still might be, but just for the sake of being different, I'll go ahead and pick Walker Buehler. From a far biased opinion, but I think he does have the stuff if he can get that fastball, if he can get that velocity where he needs it to be during the season to where he doesn't have to rely on those off-speed pitches. I think he's going to show us his stuff, and he's obviously a Cy Young candidate. So,
Cy Young candidate for me, I'm going to say Logan Webb. I think he's going to be an absolute stud this year. I think he kind of started showing us towards the end of the season in the playoffs how good of a pitcher he can be. I think the sky's the limit for this kid. But if I had to pick a dark horse, give me somebody out of the Padres rotation. I think you could pick a handful out of them that could just surprise everybody and have a bounce back year this year. Mike Clevenger coming off of injury. Blake Snell maybe puts it all together, or Darvish maybe.
Definitely interesting. I think we forget a lot about how dominant that pitching staff is down in San Diego. So all that there's left to do for our MLB preview shows is to pick our World Series champions. And for me, I went with the American League team being the Toronto Blue Jays, the National League team being the Dodgers. I think it's going to be the Toronto Blue Jays falling in 6 games to the Los Angeles Dodgers, who will be your 2022 World Series champions.
Right on. I've got the Chicago White Sox falling to my Los Angeles Dodgers, and it's going to take all 7 of them.
I got the Phillies losing to the White Sox in 5. So White Sox are your World Series champs.
A lot of love for the Phillies on this pod.
A lot of love for the White Sox.
Well, I will say, this has been an absolute blast doing these 2 episodes with you guys. It's always fun doing it, but talking about ball with you guys for this long, making this much content has been a blast. So I want to thank you guys for humoring me, coming prepared. And I think we really did a great job with this and knocked it out of the park, no pun intended. For those of you listening at home, we can't thank you enough for letting us into your home and tuning in to us. Until we see you next time. Peace.